Ever wondered how popular music came into existence? It all started in the bustling streets of New York City, in a place known as Tin Pan Alley. This was the heart of the American music publishing industry in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and it was here that popular music, as we know it, was born. Tin Pan Alley was a melting pot of creativity where songwriters, composers, and lyricists collaborated to create catchy tunes that captured the spirit of the times. From love ballads to ragtime hits, these songs became the soundtrack of everyday life, playing in parlors, dance halls, and theaters across the country. But the true democratization of music began with the advent of new technologies. One such invention that revolutionized the music industry was the phonograph. Introduced by Thomas Edison in the late 19th century, this remarkable device made it possible to record and play back sound, bringing music into homes for the first time. Suddenly, you didn't need a live band or an expensive ticket to a concert hall to enjoy music. It was now as accessible as the turn of a crank. Yet, the phonograph was just the beginning. In the early 20th century, another technological marvel hit the airwaves: the radio. With its ability to broadcast music far and wide, the radio transformed the music industry once again. It created a shared cultural experience as millions of people tuned in to listen to their favorite songs and discover new ones. As the decades rolled on, these technological advancements, coupled with the relentless creativity of Tin Pan Alley, led to a proliferation of musical styles. Jazz, blues, country, and swing each found their place in the tapestry of popular music. And then, as the 1950s dawned, a new sound began to emerge from the jukeboxes and radios. A sound that was fresh, rebellious, and exhilarating. A sound that combined elements of R&B, country, and gospel into a potent mix that would forever change the face of music. And so, the stage was set for the birth of a new genre that would shake the world: rock and roll. As the 1950s rolled in, so did a new sound: rock and roll. This fresh, energetic genre began to shape the music scene, its roots deeply embedded in rhythm and blues, country, and gospel music. It was a sound that was raw, rebellious, and utterly captivating. One name in particular stood at the forefront of this musical revolution: Elvis Presley. Known as the king of rock and roll, Elvis was an embodiment of the genre's vibrant energy. His dynamic performances and unique vocal style catapulted rock and roll into mainstream consciousness, forever transforming the music industry. But rock and roll wasn't just an American phenomenon. Across the pond in the United Kingdom, a new wave of musicians was brewing, inspired by the infectious rhythm and bold spirit of rock and roll. This was the dawn of the British invasion, a musical movement that would once again revolutionize the world of music. Leading this invasion were four lads from Liverpool: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, collectively known as the Beatles. Their music, a unique mix of rock and roll with distinctive harmonies and innovative songwriting, captured the hearts of millions across the globe. The Beatles didn't just bring British rock and roll to the world, they also transformed it, introducing elements of classical music, Indian music, and even avant-garde techniques into their songs. The Beatles' influence went beyond music, impacting fashion, film, and cultural norms. They were a symbol of the changing times, their music providing the soundtrack for an entire generation's hopes, dreams, and rebellions. And so, as the 1960s progressed, rock and roll continued to evolve, its influence permeating all corners of the globe. This was a time of musical revolution, with rock and roll and the Beatles at its helm. But while rock and roll was taking the world by storm, another genre was quietly brewing: Motown. In the heart of Detroit, a new sound was emerging: Motown. Born in the late 50s, Motown Records, named from Motortown, was the brainchild of Berry Gordy Jr. It brought together a powerhouse of talent that included Marvin Gaye, the Supremes, and Stevie Wonder. These artists, among others, created a distinct sound, a blend of soulful vocals and pop sensibilities that captivated the nation. Motown wasn't just a record label, it was a cultural phenomenon that shattered racial barriers by bringing African-American music into the mainstream. The label's innovative approach to music production, known as the Motown sound, was characterized by its use of orchestration, melodic hooks, and a driving rhythm section. This unique sound became a defining soundtrack of the 60s, forever etching its mark on the landscape of popular music. As Motown was making waves, a cultural revolution was happening with the Woodstock Festival. In 1969, the Woodstock Festival became a symbol of a generation. Woodstock was more than just a music festival. It was a social phenomenon that encapsulated the zeitgeist of the late 60s. A gathering of more than 500,000 people in a dairy farm in New York, Woodstock celebrated peace, love, and music. It became a touchstone for the counterculture movement, representing ideals of freedom, nonconformity, and communal living. The festival featured an array of genres, from folk and blues to rock and roll, with performances by iconic artists like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and The Who. Yet it was not just the music that made Woodstock a cultural landmark. It was the spirit of unity and harmony that permeated the atmosphere, a stark contrast to the social and political turmoil of the era. As Woodstock's echoes faded, a new sound began to rumble in the 1970s, a sound that was raw, aggressive, and defiant, the sound of punk rock. Emerging from the gritty streets of New York and London, punk was the antithesis of the mainstream music of the time. It was a rebellious voice against the status quo, characterized by its fast tempo, hard-edged melodies, and politically charged lyrics. Punk bands like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, and the Clash created a seismic shift in the music landscape, influencing a generation of musicians and listeners alike. Their ethos of DIY, do-it-yourself, encouraged countless young people to pick up instruments and express themselves, challenging the commercial music industry's norms. Punk was not just a genre, it was a subculture, a movement. It influenced fashion, art, and literature, and it gave voice to the disaffected youth, fostering a sense of identity and community. In essence, Woodstock and the punk rock movement both represented a rebellion against societal norms, but in vastly different ways. While Woodstock sought to create a utopia of peace and love, punk was a battle cry against societal constraints. Both, however, left indelible marks on music history and continue to resonate today. While punk was challenging norms, a new phenomenon was getting people on their feet: disco. The 1970s brought us the disco era, a time of dance and celebration. The pulse-pounding beats and infectious rhythms of disco music infiltrated every corner of the globe, making it a universal language of joy and unity. Disco was more than just music. It was a cultural phenomenon that revolutionized the way we dance and express ourselves through music. Its shimmering melodies and hypnotic grooves are still mirrored in today's dance music, proving that disco is not dead, it's just evolved. As the disco ball spun its last spin, a new sound was emerging from the Caribbean islands. Reggae, with its rhythmic pulse and potent lyrics, began to reverberate around the world. The most notable ambassador of this genre was Bob Marley. Through his music, Marley spread messages of love, unity, and resistance against oppression, making reggae a powerful musical force that transcended borders and cultures. From the warm, sun-soaked shores of Jamaica, we take a leap into the digital age with the rise of electronic dance music, or EDM. Since the late 20th century, EDM has been pulsing through our speakers and lighting up our dance floors with its captivating beats and innovative soundscapes. This genre, born from the fusion of various styles including disco, techno, and house, has shaped the sonic landscape of the 21st century, influencing not just dance music but pop, hip-hop, and even rock. And speaking of pop music, let's delve into today's pop landscape. Today's pop is a melting pot of styles, influences, and cultures. It's a genre that's constantly evolving, pushing boundaries, and redefining what it means to be popular. From the catchy hooks of Taylor Swift to the genre-blending sounds of Billie Eilish, today's pop artists are not just creating hits, they're shaping the future of music. They're experimenting with new sounds, collaborating with artists from different genres, and using technology to push the envelope of what's possible in music. But more than just a collection of catchy tunes, pop music is a reflection of our times. It tells our stories, expresses our hopes and fears, and gives voice to our shared experiences. It's a testament to the power of music to unite us, to move us, and to inspire us. From the birth of rock and roll to the pop music of today, we've journeyed through a rich and diverse history of popular music. As we look to the future, one thing is certain: music will continue to evolve, to inspire, and to bring us together. Because in the end, music is more than just sound, it's a universal language that speaks to our hearts and souls.